Hello, my name is Robert Salter. I'm a Technical Director with Blick Rothenberg, the leading firm of accountants, auditors, tax advisors and business advisors. And I'm here today to talk about the child benefit clawback changes and the national insurance changes that Jeremy Hunt has recently announced. So from a national insurance perspective, Jeremy Hunt has cut the rates of NIC paid by both employees and self-employed, both in the autumn statement and then again today as part of the new budget. So for example, somebody who's employed will typically have a 4% cut in their NIC compared to what the position was historically. Part of that occurred in January when they had a 2% cut, and there's going to be another 2% cut coming in from April this year. That can potentially save somebody, for example, on £50,000 a year, about £1,500 per annum. So for working age Britons, it's generally a win. Like I say, they can potentially, if somebody on £50,000 a year, that will be equivalent to £1,500 reduction in their tax if they're an employee. If they're self-employed, the changes aren't quite as good, but they're still going to get almost £1,300 less, again, saying that £50,000 per annum salary. People who are on lower salaries will obviously get, or lower wages will obviously get less savings. And obviously for, say, pensioners and those living off investment income and everything who don't pay national insurance, they will not get any benefit from this. So that's the difference between having a tax cut and a national insurance cut. Well, the other side of this is that whilst he's reduced national insurance, and that's welcome, the reality is other parts of the tax system have not changed. There's been no change to things like the personal tax allowance, for example, and the various income tax bands. So people just getting a wee bit more income each year are being drawn into higher and higher rates of tax. So overall, something called fiscal drag is still actually punishing a lot of people. So child benefit is obviously the benefit people with children under 16 or under 18 if they're still in full-time education can claim. But, and not anybody can claim that. So for example, a person who's a millionaire or billionaire could still claim the child benefit in their household. However, 10 years or 11 years ago now, the government introduced a clawback, which basically meant that people who, where there was one kind of member of the family earning over £50,000 a year, basically had to start paying that back through their tax system rather than actually, so basically it impacted, you know, who could really benefit from child benefit, and it started to attack middle income families increasingly. That system has always been heavily criticised. It wasn't a good system in many respects. It created a lot of confusion, a lot of difficulty for a lot of people who weren't, for example, aware of what their spouse was earning or their partner was earning. So he's listened to that partly and has made some changes in the short term. So for example, instead of having that kind of threshold starting at £50,000 a year, it's now going to start at £60,000 a year, and the way it gets tapered, so it kind of eats into your child benefit, also gradually kind of takes longer. So you won't lose all the benefit of child benefit until somebody in the family is earning at least £80,000 a year. So it's definitely better than what the system has been, but it's still kind of a flawed system. Longer term, however, he is trying to make it a system that looks at the overall household income, so both people. So at the moment, for example, if one person earns £60,000 a year, and one person earns, and the next door neighbours have two people earning £49,000 each per annum, the person in the house with the one person earning just £60,000 and no other earner is liable to the child benefit charge. Whereas the next door family, the neighbours, each earning £49,000 a year, much better off overall, they can still get the full value of that child benefit without any change. And longer term, the plan is to try and look at it and say, okay, what is the household income? And then introduce something that says it's the household income which will matter when you have the clawback or not. I think realistically there will be further changes. Obviously, to some extent, Mr. Hunt has already said he wants to change the system and improve the system, and realistically it will be an easy, in some ways it'll be an easy win for Labour if they come in, for example, to say, well, the Tories created this system for 10 years which is unfair, let's get rid of it totally, for example, or massively change the regulations so that it only hits much smaller numbers of people. Because at the moment it hits a lot of people who are, relatively speaking, certainly in the southeast of England, middle income families.